Pikmin 4 is a game I have wanted for so long, and it did not disappoint me. After beating the game 100%, I could not put it down and decided to replay the whole thing again. Only thing was, I needed to make it interesting. People for a long time have been doing challenge runs of Pikmin games, so I wanted to try my own, like a no-death run. And while I did that, and it was fun, there's not much to really talk about with that. You just kind of reset the clock every time you lose a Pikmin and retry. So, I decided to go for something entirely different and unique to Pikmin 4. You see, most Pikmin games let you land and immediately build an army of 100 little guys to tackle the wilderness with, but Pikmin 4 actually makes you naturally progress, starting with a squad of 20 and expanding the size of your units by collecting Flarlick. It's a cool feature that allows you to feel like you're actually growing stronger over the course of the game. But what if we didn't do that? What if we took the 20 red Pikmin the game gives us at the beginning, and we stick with them, and just them until the very end? Can we beat Pikmin 4 with only 20 red Pikmin? Keep in mind, there will be some spoilers in this. I'm not going to show the final boss or talk too much about the actual story, but a lot of areas, caves, and treasures will be shown. So if you want to experience yourself, please go play Pikmin 4 first. After creating my character to look like a Snorlax and setting foot on the planet, I already start to encounter problems. To pull a lot of this run off, we're going to need Ochi's help. But he doesn't grow up until you rescue the scientist Russ. Without the early introduction of the best new Pikmin, we have no way to freeze these hydro jellies to get to him. I honestly thought this would be the end right here, until I learned that whoever you rescue first will end up being Russ. So there was hope. I tried the Crackling Cauldron and encountered my second big issue: electric fences. Without Yellow Pikmin or Ochi's Shock Collar, I thought I again had hit the end. Until I remembered, I'm not alone on this journey. I have a player too that can throw rocks, and sure enough, even though it takes a lot of time, these rocks can break fences, and so I progressed down and found the castaway. You're supposed to have yellows to reach this height, but with careful positioning you can launch 3 reds up there. And with that, we have Russ. Our first major roadblock is complete. With this out of the way and Ochi grown up, the rest of the caves in the Sun-Speckled Terrace were mostly just a matter of careful positioning, perseverance, and a bit of brute force. Another benefit of rescuing Russ is we now have access to items, including Ice Blast. These will allow us to move across water to reach the first Dandori trial, and even return to the last Frost Cavern and retrieve the castaway. We also now have access to Bomb Rocks, letting us smash crystal walls, completely removing the need for Rock Pikmin. Sorry, buddies. So, let's take a moment and talk about night expeditions. These are required for beating the game, so they are unavoidable. And while it does force us to use Glow Pikmin, these aren't counted in our totals of Pikmin birthed or killed. So while it technically means we can't do this without using them, at least as far as the game's metrics are concerned, these don't exist, and we can continue on. In fact, this actually opens an interesting opportunity to us. Thanks to a discovery by Twitter user QuentinPixMin, you can use the Glow Pikmin to reach a metal plate that would normally only be reachable with Yellow Pikmin. This allows us to, in the daytime, come back and reach a treasure we otherwise can't reach. My goal in this playthrough is not only to beat the game, but collect every bit of treasure and rescue every castaway possible. I don't want to leave any stone unturned. Our next big challenge came in Serene Shores. Blossoming Arcadia was, for the most part, pretty insignificant, but I'll touch back on a couple things later. The receding waterline proved an entirely new dynamic to how I approached collecting treasure, spending most of my mornings clearing out as many enemies and obstacles as I could with Ochi, and then using my Pikmin to carry treasure back once the tide changed. It gave me a new appreciation for this game, and especially for the feeling of being underwater that I had somewhat overlooked before because I could just swarm blue Pikmin onto something. And even though I couldn't take things like Flarlicks back, it was still fun to fight underwater and pry them out of the mouths of clams. I continued learning new ways to adapt and use my environment to my benefit. It was a long process of waiting for Ochi to carry things to where my Pikmin could carry them, including these hot dogs on the edge of the map, that even on my third playthrough, I almost forgot about because they're so far away. But still, it was a fun and, well, serene process. Of course, we can't talk about Serene Shores without talking about the Engulfed Castle. This level is already challenging enough with just blue Pikmin. Going at it completely alone is a whole different story. Oatchi can do most things with the right protective equipment, but it was a long and tedious process of watching him carry every item back individually. And of course, we're on a timer here. Once the Waterwraith dropped, it became a constant cycle of baiting out its movements and waiting for my opportunity to move. Floors took me upwards of 15 to 20 minutes to complete as my pup and I maneuvered treasure and castaways around. Not helping me was the fact that I messed up and got myself hurt and had to listen to the health bar beeping, adding an extra layer of anxiety to the whole thing. There were some treasures that I concluded were just impossible without Pikmin, like the scaly custard hanging by a spider web. I even tried luring the Wraith to it to see if it could knock it down. No luck. In fact, even finishing the cave was impossible, since I had no purple Pikmin, or any Pikmin rather, to press down the bag and defeat the Waterwraith. Without doing so, I can't complete the cave. Even more unfortunately, that appears to lock us out of an entire chunk of the map, since you need to come out of the exit of the cave to reach there. I even tried using my glow Pikmin to push this back down and get up there, but it proved fruitless. This isn't the last we'll see of the shores though, but I'll save that for later. After this, I moved on to Hero's Hideaway, the final stage in the main story. Most of the caves and exploration here were pretty standard, even easily 100% doable. Definitely a nice change of pace. After taking a moment to lament over the ice Pikmin onion that I couldn't get, and using Oatchi to cheese the breadbug fights, I finished the Dandori battle with Olimar with a huge landslide victory, and finished the main campaign. So the answer to if you can beat the game with 20 red Pikmin only is a resounding yes! A cool thing I learned is during the takeoff, only red Pikmin gather to see you off. I wonder if the number that is present is actually affected by how many you sprout by this point, because I didn't bother limiting how many were born, just how many I was limited to use. Anyways, after this, the credits roll and the story is complete. But that's not enough for me. Not only do I want to complete the entire game, post-credits and all, but I want to go for as close to 100% completion as possible. So there's still work to do. After we return to the planet and gain the Swallow ability, something that will massively help us out, we came across some more major hurdles in the Dreamhouse Cave, in the Giant's Hearth. To get to the boss, you normally ride Oatchi and jump on these mushrooms. Then you can push a bag down for easier access. You also need him for the boss fight to ram into and knock it over. Problem is, the only way to get Oatchi over there is by crossing this metal plate bridge, which, like the one in Sunspeckled Terrace, requires yellow Pikmin. Technically I could have used my glow seeds to make glow Pikmin and do the same trick to lower it, but that would feel really unfair because then I could just use them in any cave like the Engulfed Castle earlier. Instead, I discovered my own solution. By throwing my Pikmin over there first, and then carefully placing a bomb rock right in front of me, I could actually send myself flying backwards far enough to land on the mushroom and reach the other side. I then lowered the bag and brought Oatchi in, giving me another complete cave. Another cave that gave me trouble was the Cradle of the Beast. In this one, you normally have red Pikmin carry a flaming pine cone to burn piles of straw blocking your path. The pine cone is behind a bag that has to be pressed with 30 Pikmin, which I don't have. I did have an idea to try and get up there myself and throw the Pikmin from on top of the bag, and after carefully manipulating the objects around me, I was able to get enough backwards momentum off of Oatchi's ram to land up there. Except, the game apparently has something built in to stop this from being abused, as it places an invisible wall through the bag to stop you from crossing or throwing past it. It's probably something to prevent clipping or losing Pikmin by throwing them over the bag, but it did stop our attempt here. This locked out most of the cave, since I can't bring items through the metal bars and can't burn the straw in the way of the ledge. It should also keep us trapped on the first sub-level, since you can't burn the straw allowing you to get there, But with the same trick to get on the bag, I was able to get up the ledge to the next entrance. One last cave here, the ultimate testing range, had 2 treasures of note that both revolve around flying Pikmin. The telekinesis detector, which, to my knowledge, doesn't have any other way to retrieve, since Oatchi can't jump on the platform and the Pikmin won't carry it down, and the straight and narrow track. So, an interesting thing happens if Oatchi falls while swallowing treasure, is that he'll spawn back on the solid land where he fell from, still carrying the treasure. I was able to abuse this, thanks to its shape, to spit the treasure out at a close enough range for Oatchi to get up the cliff and swallow it as he's falling, spawning him back up on the higher ledge, letting him carry it back. Last thing to note about the Giant's Hearth is the water valve by the Dandori challenge. You can walk by the water perfectly fine with your Pikmin, but if you try and carry a pine cone there, it will get put out. And if you try to get your Pikmin to carry supplies, they will only pathfind straight ahead through the water, so you have to use blues. So, I got to spend a lot of time just sitting and watching Oatchi carry materials one at a time to shut this water off. I realized while editing this that I could have used glow Pikmin during a night mission, and now I'm really annoyed, so let's move on. A small detour before the end was doing Olimar's story. I wanted to also attempt this with 20 red Pikmin, but it is just impossible. You have to collect all 30 parts to the ship, and some of them just require you to have yellow and blue Pikmin. I still limited myself as much as I could, keeping my Pikmin cap at 30, which is the lowest it can be since you need 30 blue Pikmin for one of the parts. The last area, the Primordial Thicket, presented us with our final true challenge. Most of the level and treasures were pretty easy to cheese with the strategies I'd learned so far. In fact, it looked like I was on my way to truly complete this challenge. All the way until the final cave, Cavern for a King. This boss gauntlet cavern was difficult on its own, but sub-level 16 grinds us to an absolute halt. Not 1, but 2 Waterwraiths land to taunt me and block our way. Unless someone has discovered a way to clip past the gate, this is technically the end of the run. The only way to move forward is to use the Candy Pop Bud to make purple Pikmin to take out the Wraiths. So, sadly, the answer to if you can beat the entire story of Pikmin 4 with only 20 red Pikmin is, well, no. Of course, I made it this far and didn't want this to end, so I did what the game wanted and made a singular purple Pikmin to take them out. On the second to last floor, there are candy pop buds that can be used to turn your purple back into a red, and from there, you beat the final boss and finish the game. Minus this one singular hiccup, I played through the entire game with my squad of 20 red Pikmin, so I still consider this a success. Afterwards, I went back collecting every treasure I missed that I could, including the Mechanical Harp memory song in Blossoming Arcadia that seemed impossible without yellow Pikmin, but with enough patience and excruciating precision, we're able to just barely squeeze enough Pikmin up there. We also need to return to Serene Shores to tackle that entire section of the map we couldn't reach. It still seemed hopeless, but I decided to put to the test my wall jumping abilities I learned earlier. By angling a dead peckish aristocrab in just the right spot and abusing the absolute fuck out of the game's physics, I was able to land up by the bag successfully. The game has a strange invisible wall behind it that seems to exist to prevent you from throwing Pikmin up to push the bag down, but doing the Dandori challenge up here allows us to grab our Pikmin when we leave and just barely get back in time to knock the bag down. This was a huge accomplishment, allowing access to 4 entire treasures and a castaway we otherwise wouldn't have gotten. Strangely though, the invisible box behind the bag seems to stick around, so it must be something that gets removed when you emerge from the engulfed castle. With that, we are brought to the end of the journey. The full list of treasures we can't get are the scaly custard from the engulfed castle, along with the glinty circular disc, noble goo, and a castaway from beating the Waterwraith, the telekinesis detector from the ultimate testing range, the citrus lump in Cradle of the Beast that we can't crush the bag and reach, along with the king of meats that is too heavy to carry, though I did try to push all the way back to the ship. It gets stuck on the stairs though. The skin of the phoenix and sweat-soaked blue bird stuck in the mud without flying Pikmin in the mud pit, and, of course, the golden vaulting table that requires an entire squad of purple Pikmin to carry. Out of the 239 treasures and 50 castaways in the game, that is only 9 treasures and 1 castaway we can't get. Including the onions and Flarlick, that is 95.8% of the entire game collected and completed by just 20 little red Pikmin, including one that briefly changed to purple, and 1 space pup. If you actually made it this far, thank you so much for watching. This video was a huge undertaking, and it would mean a lot if you considered subscribing, sharing it, or even just giving it a like. Sorry I've been gone so long. With my summer job and a big move into my new apartment, I haven't been able to keep doing content, but I'm working on a lot of new stuff to get back into it, so please stick around. I'll catch you guys next time.